You're a fan of a team, let's say from a certain icy cold region of the world. You draft this kid, pretty high in the draft. He says all the right things right after being selected. The general manager gives a nod of approval, poses with your team's uniform, the whole 9 yards. Then a year later, just says, nope. Your team is left scrambling, hoping to get 10 cents on the dollar for their one expensive investment. Then said player gives some half-ass excuse on why he asked out. Star and the moon were aligned in a way where my third eye revealed itself to me, that my manifestation of success wasn't a fit with this team. Or something like that. That's the reality that both Flyers and Jets fans have had to face this year alone, and what fans are going to face in the years coming. There is a problem that this league is facing, one that could create an interesting yet hazardous dynamic for the league. Like the NBA and their player empowerment, NHLers realize that they also have workers' rights and have the ability to choose the workplace of their choice. But how much are they exploiting that? Cutter Gauthier, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Adam Fox, DeBrincat, just some of the more recent examples of a player who may have crossed the line of player empowerment. And this is more of a recent thing too. Now most of that is due to the fact that the insane rookie contract lengths that was agreed upon after lockout, even with the restraints, players, especially stars and superstars, have always stuck with a quota, sticking with your team through thick and thin. Crosby, Ovechkin, hell, even as recent as McDavid, all stuck with their team through thick, and I mean thick, signing long-term deals instead of bridge deals that causes headaches within the fan base. Poor Leafs fans. Before I go on my main point here, this video isn't an attack on the Marners, the Matthews, the Swaymans, players who went all out to get maximum dollar. Those aren't examples of entitled players. Those players put their bodies on the line and deserve to fight for every dollar that they can earn. I'm talking about recent trends of late. Demanding a trade, and even in some instances, demanding a trade before even playing a game for your organization. Being drafted is a supposed honor, and being in the NHL is considered a privilege. Now, I'm not one of those fans who believe that players should have an undefined loyalty to the team that they get drafted to, but being drafted means that you are a property of the respective team, and it's at least expected to play out at least your ELC. But guys like Adam Fox, Cutter Gauthier, and McGroarty seem to not even give a shit about their own team. This is an example of player empowerment. The NBA never has stuff like this happen to them, otherwise you'd see all the players get conveniently drafted by big market teams, the Knicks, the Lakers, Celtics, etc. The NFL is different as contracts are non-guaranteed, so it's fair game for the players to act up the way they wanna. And even then, the last one to do it was Eli Manning over 20 years ago. Caleb Williams didn't do it, Andrew Luck didn't, Trevor Lawrence didn't. This is strictly a hockey issue. No sport in North America is possible where a player can be drafted and can leave a team so out to dry. Speaking for you, my Flyers fans. Cutter Gauthier saying his favorite team going was the Penguins probably should have been a bigger deal than initially thought. All jokes aside, the whole situation is honestly something we may never get to the bottom of. There weren't any rumors of a toxic locker room in the Flyers organization. The Flyers clearly wanted him, and they're going to start him in the NHL. And the Flyers are a premier franchise. So much though that Michkov kind of forced himself there in the draft. So in retrospect, what Gauthier did kind of makes no sense. Drafted 5th overall to the Flyers, he spent the next 2 years in NCAA where he tore it up, looked like a future top light power forward, then proceeded to win the World Juniors Best Forward Award. It looked like the Flyers had drafted a stud to play with Michkov. All of a sudden, we got a stunner of a trade. Gauthier would be heading to the Ducks for a Drysdale and a 2nd round pick. It made no sense. Danny Briere had talked very highly of the man. There weren't any off-ice issues that we know about. What could possibly be the reason for this trade? Well, shortly after, the ball would drop and we'd find out. He wasn't taking calls from anybody from the Flyers organization. John LeClaire, Keith Jones, Patrick Sharp, Danny Briere all were ignored. He never officially asked out, but instead did his damnedest to make it seem like he did. The Cutter Gauthier situation sucks. The Flyers had to trade arguably the second best prospect for scraps, and Gauthier gets no penalty whatsoever. He never told the Flyers he never wanted to play for Philly at the draft. He said all the right things, except for that. So what happened? Like I said, we're probably never gonna find a true reason why, but rumors stem from the fact that Cutter wanted to sign his ELC early, but the Flyers didn't have the salary cap needed and had to wait a year. If that's the reason, holy shit, Chuck Fletcher was a worse GM than I initially thought. But there was a precedent for stuff like this. The next example is even more egregious. When you see the career that he's had. Adam Fox was drafted by the Calgary Flames in the 3rd round and immediately shot his value to the moon when he won the Hobie Baker before he finally made the NHL. In that span, he'd asked out of 2 different teams, the Calgary Flames and the Carolina Hurricanes. And then finally ended up in New York. What was the reason? Well, he specifically asked to go to the Rangers, asking out from the Calgary Flames organization, and then later on was involved in the trade that sent Hanifin and Lindholm to Calgary, and him and Dougie Hamilton to Carolina. Then when the Canes were winning and could have used a pretty good two-way right-hand defenseman, he asked out there too. Him being traded from the Hurricanes isn't as bad as he did want to be a Ranger since all the way back in 2017. And the Carolina Hurricanes acquired him, which is a case of throwing shit at a wall and hoping it sticks. Adam Fox walking in and making demands a year after being drafted, let alone not even a 1st round pick, is kinda dickish. And people wonder why Flames fans boo him to this day. And the career he's had has been incredible. A Norris Trophy winner, a top flight defenseman. And it's kind of unbelievable that he asked of 2 different teams to be the team he wanted to be in the first place. I could also highlight a player like Rutger McGroarty who did the exact same thing as Cutter and they're best friends. But I could go on and on. If we really want to go back, we can highlight Blake Wheeler who got drafted 5th overall, way higher than most people projected him to, and put up 2 giant middle fingers to the Coyotes when he asked out as he walked the Bruins for nothing. But to be fair, that was his right as a 4th-year college player, so that's not really a case of entitlement, more like using your rights. But these players are examples of pissing off the organization, fan base, etc. Now let's go on to players demanding trades. They demand trades all the time. It's usually pretty formal. The players upset the team's direction / bleak outlook, respectfully asked out, and the trade is done with little to no malicious intent. This is a simple procedure, but sometimes stuff like this can go awry. Alex DeBrincat, what a guy, eh? As a Sens fan, I like this man. When he acquired him, it was always under the premise that we'd have 1 year to impress him and get him locked up. Otherwise, he'd exercise his rights as a restricted free agent. But the way he went about it just left Sens fans with a sour taste in their mouths. First of all, he completely underperformed relative to his previous stats, a -31, and less than 30 goals for a supposed 40 goal scorer was really concerning. Tack on the price handed out to him to acquire him a 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and it made for some tension when it came to trying to resign him. There were some pros and cons of having an Alex DeBrincat on your team. He's a great power play specialist, capable of racking up points on what was an elite 2023 Sens power play. He's also a top 6 forward that this Sens team desperately needed. That's kinda where the positives ended for a guy like him. He's not great defensively, he's not a checker, and the one truly elite thing about him, his scoring, took a dip. When you asked for $9 million, there was some pushback. Only problem was that he wanted $9 million, but not from Ottawa, making his demands very clear, stating how he didn't want to play behind, to him, an inferior Brady Tkachuk, and also didn't want to play with DJ Smith and his system. Also his concerns of the city of Ottawa, which, sure. This was shaping up to be your typical player wants out scenario. A little bit of animosity, especially with the fact that we paid a 1st round pick for him, but nothing we haven't seen before, especially as a Sens fan. But the way he went around it made it very easy for Sens fans to hate him. First, he demanded a trade to just one team, absolutely torpedoing any value he had. And that one team happened to be one of their biggest rivals in the Detroit Red Wings. Then, when the trade was agreed upon, the contract that was signed was a lot less than he supposedly wanted from Ottawa, from $9 million to immediately $7.8. Then he went on an immediate tirade, maybe not tirade, but you get the point. He went out and said how he didn't try in Ottawa. Mind you, the Sens couldn't really use his services as they were in a pretty heated battle for a wildcard spot, a battle that included the Detroit Red Wings. And in his own words, he was lazy, a professional athlete, one that gets paid millions of dollars a year to put a piece of rubber in the back of a net, something he couldn't give a shit and was half-assing his way out of Ottawa. And Detroit Red Wings fans wonder why we don't like him. Of course, this wasn't taken well. I mean, athlete asking out to one of the biggest rivals and stating how you couldn't give two fucks about your own team may not go over with the fan base. Tack on the fact that he started to see lead the league in goals. The year after he couldn't even crack 30, he was on pace for over 50. Thank God he cooled off, otherwise Sens fans may have bombarded his DMs with mid-jokes. So that's an example of a player demanding out of one team. As painful as that was to rate, he isn't the first player to leave his team out to dry. Pierre-Luc Dubois, if there's one man that exemplifies entitled, it would be this French female dog. How one man has managed to be the enemy of 3 different fan bases is beyond me. I don't really have to get into specifics of his antics, but half-assing a shift because he didn't want to play in Columbus, then bitching and forcing your way out of Winnipeg to Montreal to the point where you're in the draft waiting for a trade, all for you to end up in LA, then to act like a victim in your 1 year in Los Angeles when it was the Kings that was so confident you traded King's ransom and gave you an 8-year deal. By the way, Rob Blake, genius decision. At this point, it's only a matter of time until an incident happens with the Capitals. Unlike DeBrincat, PLD hasn't outright said he doesn't care about his team, but fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, you can go fuck my sister. Oh wait, you're telling me PLD is actually doing good in Washington? And hasn't had any incidents yet? Well, my sister's yours, dude, boy, I can go fuck her. So is this epidemic going to happen to your favorite team? Yes, probably, I'm sorry. And it's going to get much more worse. I mean, it really isn't a coincidence that the 2 more recent examples, McGroarty and Gauthier, played together on the World Junior team and were close friends off the ice. And no matter what some woke fan says about player empowerment and how it's actually good for the players because they have the right to do so, it isn't. The draft is specifically designed so teams like the Winnipeg Jets and the Calgary Flames can survive, knowing that free agency isn't an option. So when you get 18-20-year-olds coming in making demands, screwing teams over, just cause they aren't happy they couldn't get millions of dollars just 1 year earlier, or they're unhappy cause, oh my god, I have to live in Winnipeg, oh my god, it's like Syria with ice. A first round pick is one of the most valuable assets a team could possess. Teams will punt full seasons worth of games, lose on purpose, absolutely humiliate themselves just for them to have a chance of being a high enough draft pick. They invest time and effort, thousands on scouts, they're expensive, just to make sure the 17 to 18 year old selecting is the right one. It isn't really a way to gauge just how much these draft picks are worth monetary wise. We're gonna transcend sports real quick. The Sporting News has a great article on the value on draft picks for the MLB. I know different sport, but at least you can get a different gauge of how much each draft pick is worth in terms of money. The first overall pick in terms of actual monetary value is $10.5 million. And I can guarantee you this number is much higher in different instances. For example, Connor Bedard led the league in jersey sales his rookie year alone, and also contributed to a 10% increase in tickets sold and double the season ticket holder share. Judging by the fact that the Hawks sold 380,000 tickets in 2023, and each ticket has an estimate of about $108 US, we could assume the Hawks made about $41 million. But with the increased Bedard revenue, that adds another $4 million in value. And that's just on ticket revenue, not including merchandise, advertising, all the Winter Classic games that this team somehow gets. So why am I talking about this? Well, when Cutter Gauthier asked out, do you think it was just a Flyers fan that was upset? God no, the literal CEO of the Flyers went on live television and talked shit about the guy. Why do you think that? Well, their multi-million-dollar investment that they had a miserable season just to select for, just decides they don't want to play for their organization, it becomes a problem. Honestly, I really don't care if a CEO or a large corporation loses money, but as a fan, we feel the brunt of the wrath when a situation like this happens. So we can concur the Flyers, Jets, Coyotes back with Wheeler, all lost millions. The Flames lost a potential Norris Trophy winner, and the Sens and Jets, Blackhawks, Kings lost assets on a player who could give 2 shits about their team. Before you go in the comments and go off about how I don't care about players' well-beings and how I'm a selfish little fan, look, it's tough when a player doesn't want to play for a team. But this happens in sports, and it's often done class and professionalism. Look at Matthew Tkachuk. He didn't want to play with the Flames. He asked out, did strong arm the team, even though he was an RFA, and gave the Flames leverage and willing to make a sign trade. Now the Flames kind of got shafted, but that's more on the Flames than Tkachuk, and he's thriving in Florida because he played his cards right and didn't act like a whiny little bitch. This is an issue the league is going to face very soon. Players, and I'm going to sound as unbiased as possible, but American players picking and choosing where they want to go when it really isn't their right to. Teams in Canada and small market American teams are going to be punished, but we've also seen this issue with large market teams like the Flyers. This is going to be an issue the league is going to face for a while, but how are they going to fix it? Fuck you, DeBrincat.